I never believed in all the elf on the shelf hysteria. It seemed like harmless fun for kids and a clever marketing gimmick for adults. But this Christmas, I learned that some traditions have roots far darker than we dare to admit. It started innocently enough. My sister Emma insisted on dropping off an elf on the shelf for my niece Lily, who was spending Christmas with me this year. "You'll love it," Emma said. "Just move it around the house at night. It's a fun little game." I rolled my eyes but agreed. I wasn't big on Christmas cheer, but Lily deserved a magical holiday. Besides, it was just a doll. The elf itself was unsettling. Its grin was frozen in a smug expression, and its plastic eyes seemed to follow me no matter where I stood. "It's just a decoration," I muttered, shoving it into the box with the Christmas lights. That night, Lily's eyes sparkled as I told her the story of the elf. It was Santa's little spy, watching children to ensure they behaved. She was thrilled when I placed it on the fireplace mantel, promising to move it after she went to sleep. The first night, I put the elf on the kitchen counter. The second night, I stuck it in the Christmas tree. But on the third night, something felt off. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of something clattering in the living room. My heart raced as I tiptoed down the hallway. The house was dark, the only light coming from the colorful Christmas tree. And there, in the glow of the blinking lights, was the elf. It was no longer perched in the tree where I had left it. It was sitting upright on the coffee table, its tiny arms folded, facing the hallway as though it had been waiting for me. I laughed nervously. "Lily must have moved it," I said aloud, though deep down I knew she hadn't. She had been fast asleep when I checked on her earlier. Shrugging it off as my imagination playing tricks on me, I picked up the elf and put it back in the tree. But as I turned to leave, I swore I heard a faint rustling behind me. The next morning, Lily was thrilled to find the elf in the tree again. "Did he move himself, Auntie?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. "Sure," I said, forcing a smile. "He's a magical elf, remember?" That night, I decided to keep a closer eye on it. I set the elf on a bookshelf in the living room and left a small baby monitor running, its screen on my nightstand. If Lily was sneaking out of bed to play with it, I'd catch her. But at 3:15 a.m., I woke to the faint sound of static from the monitor. Bleary-eyed, I glanced at the screen. The bookshelf was empty. My heart dropped. I squinted at the grainy black and white feed, scanning the room. The elf wasn't there. My pulse quickened as I leaned closer, trying to make sense of the strange shadows on the screen. Then, it moved. The elf's tiny figure scuttled across the floor, its jerky motions inhuman, like a broken marionette. I froze, unable to breathe as it climbed onto the coffee table and turned its head toward the camera. Its blank plastic eyes stared directly into the lens. I grabbed my phone, shaking, and rushed to the living room. The elf was there, just as I had seen on the monitor, sitting on the coffee table facing me. Its smug grin now seemed sinister, mocking. "Lily," I called out, my voice trembling. No response. She was still asleep. It wasn't her. I threw the elf into the closet, slamming the door shut and barricaded it with a chair. But I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I found Lily sitting cross-legged in front of the closet, staring at the closed door. "What are you doing, sweetie?" I asked, trying to mask my unease. "He's mad," she said simply, not turning to look at me. "Who's mad?" "The elf. You locked him up. He doesn't like that." A cold chill ran down my spine. "Lily, it's just a toy." Her tiny shoulders shrugged. "He told me you'd say that." I didn't have the courage to open the closet. Instead, I decided to get rid of the elf entirely. While Lily was busy decorating cookies, I stuffed the doll into a garbage bag, drove to the nearest dumpster, and tossed it in. I watched the garbage truck haul it away that afternoon, a sense of relief washing over me. But that night, I woke to a soft tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the living room. My stomach twisted as I slowly made my way down the hall. The house was eerily quiet, save for the sound of the tapping. The elf was back, Perched on the mantel where it had first sat, its plastic grin wider than before, as though it knew something I didn't. Its tiny hands held a piece of paper with a single message scrawled in childlike handwriting. "You can't get rid of me." I stumbled backward, my mind racing. This wasn't possible. I had thrown it away. It was gone. And yet, here it was. The lights flickered, plunging the house into momentary darkness. When they came back on, the elf was no longer on the mantel. It was standing in the hallway. I screamed, grabbing Lily and locking us in my bedroom. I called the police, but what could I tell them? That a toy was terrorizing me? The officers arrived half an hour later. They found nothing. No elf, no footprints, no sign of forced entry. They assured me it was probably a prank and left, but I knew the truth. For the next few days, I tried to act normal for Lily's sake, but the tension in the house was suffocating. I saw the elf everywhere, in reflections, in the corner of my eye, always watching. On Christmas Eve, I woke to find Lily missing from her bed. Panicked, I tore through the house, calling her name. I found her in the living room, sitting cross-legged by the tree. The elf was in her lap, and she was whispering to it. "Lily!" I shouted, grabbing her arm. "Get away from that thing." She looked up at me, her eyes wide and distant. "He says he wants to stay forever." Before I could respond, the lights went out again. The air turned icy cold, and the room filled with the sound of tiny footsteps circling us. I clutched Lily tightly, my heart pounding as the whispers started. 1,000 voices speaking in unison, chanting something I couldn't understand. When the lights flickered back on, the elf was gone. But Lily's voice wasn't her own when she turned to me and said, "Merry Christmas, Auntie." If this story gave you chills, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more scary tales every week. It would help the channel out a lot. Also, let me know in the comments below if you have a scary holiday story. Have a wonderful holiday.